The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
Welcome into Newark, New Jersey. It is UFC 288. The UFC is back with a pay-per-view event in this month of May, and it is headlined by the return of Triple C, the king of cringe, Mr. Henry Cejudo himself. He will be taking on Aljamain Sterling, who actually grew up just across the way there in New York. It'll be Aljamain Sterling looking to defend his title against the man who never gave it up by a defeat. That is Cejudo. He walked away from the sport in 2020. He is back, and so are we. Brett Okamoto with Ian Parker. We are here to break down the UFC 288 card from a gambling perspective. A lot of big picks for you. Main card, prelims, the whole works, prop bets, everything that you have grown accustomed to on this show. But before we do, Mr. Ian Parker, how are you doing? And why don't you take us through how we did last week at the UFC's Apex UFC Fight Night?
Well, last week I didn't do wonderful, but I'm feeling way better going into this week. Ricky Simone, the first time we tested out that point spread, Brett, it did not go in our favor. Song Simone, however, went over 2.5. That was pretty easy. Julian Erosa did exactly what I hope he didn't do, and that was stand and bang instead of grapple. He stood, he fell, we lost. Now this one, Marcos Rogerio de Lima, I emphasize this is my favorite player of the week. That one hit with ease. And then we lost Charles Johnson, Moneyline, and Stephanie Egger. It did go inside the distance, but not in her favor. And we just missed out on the parlay by one leg, 2 and 4. But you know what happens when I get cold? I usually turn around and I get hot. Pay-per-view Ian's a little different. I'm feeling good about this week.
That is true. Pay-per-view Ian has been good in 2023. So let's take a look at this pay-per-view main card lineup. You can find it, of course, on ESPN Plus, this pay-per-view at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. Aljamain Sterling coming in plus 100, despite Henry Cejudo coming back off of a 3-year layoff. Gilbert Burns, didn't we just see this guy in Miami? That is right. He is a small favorite against Bilal Muhammad, who took this fight on short notice. 5-round co-main event there. Jessica Andrade taking on Yan Xiaonan. This is a fight we didn't expect to see. Movsar Evloev taking on Diego Lopez. This was supposed to once upon a time be Jonathan Pierce versus Bryce Mitchell. A little bit of injuries here in MMA, so we get a different 10 ranks Movsar Evloev in a featherweight bout, and then Crone Gracie making his return. Hadn't heard his name in a while. He's taking on Charles Jourdain. That's a fun fight to kick off this UFC 288 pay-per-view. And let's go straight to that main event. If you have been betting on Aljamain Sterling recently, you've loved it. You know, he was a 3-1 underdog against Petr Yan. Then he was just a very small favorite against TJ Dillashaw. He made that look very, very easy. Same thing with Henry Cejudo, though. Before he walked away from the sport, this guy was cashing tickets left and right, sometimes at very, very favorable odds. Here he comes back minus 120. First of all, Ian, are you a little surprised that he is the favorite? How did you sort of handicap this line? What did you think was going to be appropriate coming in here?
What's interesting is that he started off, I think, plus 105, and this line's been going back and forth a little bit. But, Brett, I'm not surprised at all because stylistically, I think this does favor Henry Cejudo. I think the reason why the line isn't bigger is for the obvious. He's been away for 3 years. If you take away that 3 years and you started this the way Henry left off, the line is way, way different. But look, minus 110, then on April 15th, plus 100. Now, as of today, May 5th, he is minus 120 and is the betting favorite over the current champ, Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, and like you said, it really is. If you were to take Henry Cejudo, you know, right there in the middle of his prime, let's say he had never walked away from the sport, I'm thinking this line's probably minus 240, minus 260 even for Henry Cejudo. Maybe I'm talking a little bit high. So why don't you tell us, what do you think this line would be just to give people sort of that perspective? And then how do you go about breaking down this fight?
I think a 2 to 3 to 1 favorite is very fair for someone who's the double champ, and he was finishing fights. He was dominating. You know, in regards to this fight, first off, he looked great on the scales. People were wondering what he was going to look like 3 years out. Keep in mind, guys, this is someone who's taken his camp fight ready to a new level, coaching people like John Jones, John Wei Lee. He's been there, even Davison Figueiredo in that last fight. You know, he has looked phenomenal as a coach. He's still training. We see videos of him and Demetrius Johnson. This is not someone who's just sitting on the couch and just decided, hey, I want this paycheck. He's not that type of person. He is not going to taint his legacy when that's what he's all about, just to go and fight someone. I think he saw this opportunity similar to GSP against Michael Bisping. I think this is one of those situations where he sees a stylistic matchup that's favorable for him, and he goes after it, and I do think he gets it done here. You know, for me, for Henry Cejudo, I think he's the better striker. I think he's faster. the better wrestler. He's also a very cerebral fighter, high IQ. He studies the game like no other. Now, I'm not sitting here and telling you that Aljamain Sterling's a bad fighter. He is a deserved champ. You know, the first time he caught that knee, that fight was not going well for him prior to that. But then against Petr Yan, he won. He out-grappled. He took the back. He did exactly what he needed to do. Against TJ Dillashaw, you know, Dillashaw fought with some pretty heavy-duty dislocated shoulders. Multiple times during camp. We didn't know about this. He dislocated immediately during the fight. But that's not Aljamain Sterling's fault. He didn't know that. He went out there and got the job done. However, where I think Aljamain's going to have a problem is I don't see how he takes Henry's back. People are going to say, oh, well, he did it to Petr Yan so easy. Go watch how Petr Yan defends takedowns. What he does is he turns his back and he tries to shuck you off with like a donkey kick. And against a good wrestler like Aljo, they're not going to let go of your ankle. They're going to lift the leg and they're going to run the pipe. Henry Cejudo is going to sprawl. And when he does that, front headlock, spin to the side, light him up with strikes. If Aljo can't take the back or keep this fight at a distance, I think Henry picks him up park and gets the win. I'm going with Triple C and New. I think Henry Cejudo comes back and he wins the belt back.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good points there made. First of all, just the scrambling ability of Cejudo. The scrambles is where Aljamain can really sort of get those positions in which that leads to these finishes. Henry Cejudo, one of the best scramblers I've ever seen in the entire history of the sport. And I also think he's hungry, man. I think he's hungry. A lot was made about, what kind of shape was he in. I always believed in Henry to get in shape and to make the weight and to look good on the scale, but it's also what's going on in here. I think as guys get older and then they walk away from the sport for a little bit, you wonder how hungry are they? I think Henry Cejudo is coming back for the right reasons. He's not just coming back for a paycheck. So if you do like Henry Cejudo, I think that those are two things going in his favor. Let's talk about this co-main event. Super, super interesting, man. I mean, we just saw Gilbert Burns last month in Miami. Took out Jorge Masvidal. I think he was a little disappointed at first he didn't get to finish there, but since then he kind of looked at his performance, said he was very happy with it. He's going to need another good performance here to stop an 8-0 run by Belal Muhammad, who takes this fight on short notice, but he did make weight at the official weigh-ins. He is looking to secure a title shot, as is Gilbert Burns, who comes in minus 125. Talk a little bit about where the line is. Did anything surprise you? And also how this short notice, quick turnaround whole storyline plays into how you're handicapping this.
Well, it's interesting. If you actually pay attention to both guys on social media, it looks like they're always training. Belal was going through Ramadan, so he wasn't eating much during the day. At night is where he'd be able to replenish. But he's always training, and he's a cardio machine. He's always in great shape. He's a student of the game, and he's constantly evolving. We talked about this fight with Sean Brady in the past, and we said if he can keep the fight standing, I believe he wins. And you know what? His boxing looked great, and he got that finish that people didn't think he was capable of. Now he's fighting against someone, Gilbert Burns, and this short notice thing, I don't know how great it is for Gilbert either. People are like, oh, he just fought, so he's in good shape. Yeah, but in between then and the couple of weeks after, he wasn't doing anything. He blew back up. He rehydrated. So both of them had to go through another weight cut. So if you take that away and you get it down to its simplest form, you got a wrestler against one of the best jiu-jitsu guys out there. I think Belal's got better boxing. I think Gilbert's got the better power. But I think the cardio and the 5 rounds actually favors Belal. I would lean Belal at plus money. However, from a betting standpoint on top of that, because, again, this is a very close fight. I like over 4.5 rounds. If you want to go that far, I don't see other guy getting the finish. But at plus money, if Belal can push the pace and keep this fight standing, I favor him to get it done. His cardio is a problem. We've seen it for other people in the past.
Yeah, I mean, that I don't really give out picks on this show. I leave that to the expert Ian Parker. But I got to say, I really do like your pick of over 4.5 here. I just feel like Gilbert Burns has proven to be a very, very difficult guy to finish, of course. He's got the wrestling. He's got the grappling game. I think Belal, yes, he likes to push that pace, but I also think that coming in here on short notice, will he push it quite as much as he's used to? I mean, I think he will. He's always going to weaponize that cardio. But you also, man, I mean, you don't want to go out there on short notice. You just had a big weight cut and just put it pedal to the metal from the first round. Because I got to believe there's just a slight doubt thinking, like, I better have something for the 4th and 5th rounds here. So while I do agree with everything he said, Belal is fit. It's an advantage, Belal, 4th and 5th rounds. I think this is going to be more of a little bit of a feel out as opposed to the crazy pace that we're used to seeing out of Belal Muhammad. Your thoughts?
It's very possible. Again, he is someone that he thrives off that. Sometimes what you lack in certain areas, that cardio just is a whole different ball game. But to your point, I think that first round, he's got to feel it out. Gilbert's going to carry power. I also think Gilbert's going to kind of wait it out too, because if Belal does wrestle him, where Gilbert does his best work in jiu-jitsu is really when he's on top. Granted, he's a threat off his back, But when you got a wrestler like Bilal who can control position, I don't think Gilbert wants to really deal with that too early. And again, him fending off someone on top, that could take tiresome away from him. I don't disagree with you. I don't think Bilal's going to press the gas pedal so early. I still think he can carry that pace. It's just what he does. But I'm very curious to see what happens in this fight. And I do think people are going to be surprised here. I think if Gilbert gets a finish here, I know what Dana's been saying. It's going to be hard to deny him. And if Bilal does it, there's a storyline there with Leon Edwards with the eye poke. Who knows? But I'm happy this co-main event's happening.
Yep. It'll be an interesting one, and I'm very thankful that it's 5 rounds. I like the fact that we get to see this fight for 5 rounds. Okay, before we get to the rest of your main card picks, what is your prop of the night for this week? It's been one of our favorite additions to the show. What are we going with at UFC 288?
I'm glad he's back. He doesn't look like he's too happy to be here, but when he steps in the cage, Kron Gracie is a very tough grappler. I'm going with him by submission. He's fighting someone, Charles Jourdain, who was out-grappled by Shane Burgos and Nathaniel Woods in his last 2 fights. Gets taken down very easily. You get taken down by this guy, he's going to just grab onto you, choke you, armbar you, whatever it is. I think Kron Gracie at that submission at plus odds, I'm going to take that all day, every day, especially with someone in Jourdain who's no threat jiu-jitsu-wise. So with that being said, Brett, let's go into the next couple of main card picks. Here, we got Yan Xiaonan and we got Jessica Andrade lined up on this card as well. I'm going with the underdog here in Yan Xiaonan. I don't love what I saw out of Jessica Andrade against Blanchfield. I know she kind of just came off the beach, took the fight in short notice. But stylistically, if she can't get this fight to the ground, I'm going to take Yanan's straightforward boxing over Andrade's wild hooks. Yanan's going to be one of those other type of physical type of fighters who can keep up with the strength of Andrade. I like the underdog situation here. Ivlov versus Lopez, you know what? I'm going over 2.5 rounds. Most are when he has fought. He's a grappler, decision guy. Lopez, very good off his back. Very tough task on extremely short notice, but let's go over 2.5. Kron Gracie, I'm taking him money line here with the props, and that's what we're going to do for our main card.
Look at that. 3 underdog picks on a 5-fight main card. You got to love that. And without further ado, let's go on to the prelims, which we have lost a couple prelims due to some weight misses here at UFC 288. So note a little bit of a later start time. Go ahead, talk about your prelim picks, Mr. Parker.
Brett, I think the dog's going to be barking. I'm going to go with the hometown favorite here in Matt Frevola at plus 175. Now, look, Drew Dober has a chin made of cement, but we saw Frevola knock out Oztar Ottman, and with Dober, he's taking so much damage here. At some point, something's got to give, and I think wrestling of Frevola is going to come into play here. We've seen Dober being taken down before. I'm going there. I'm also going Devin Clark as an underdog here. Kennedy keeps getting better, but very slow starter in round 1. Devin Clark's a good wrestler. Showed us in his last fight that he still has it in him. When he's smart and he wrestles first, ground and pound second, he can get it done. Chaos Williams is coming back, and he is going to bring the chaos. I like him there. Minus 310, we're going to hold off on that. We're going to toss him in the parlay. And I'm going to finish this with another dog in Jandiroba. I think Marina Rodriguez is one of the better strikers in the division. However, we have seen against good grapplers, she gets taken down. She can be held down for a long time. Jandiroba's striking has improved. For the rest of the prelim card, I'm going Parker Porter over Braxton Smith. Smith is a very dangerous knockout artist. But against Parker Porter, Parker has fought better competition. He's been here before, and he's got a ground game that's a little underestimated. I'm going with him as the favorite. With Hawes and Ikram, this one might be a little bit of a head scratcher because sometimes he makes really bad decisions in Hawes, but I'm going over 1.5 rounds as Ikram's submission game with the key locks and the Kimuras have come most of them in rounds 2 and 3. And last but not least, give me a Claudio Ribeiro to get this win over Joseph Holmes, who came in 4 pounds overweight and coming off a really poor performance in his last fight.
6 underdog picks by Ian Parker for this UFC 288. I love it. 6 underdogs gives us plenty of good odds to work with here on Saturday. And so without further ado, let's ask pay-per-view Ian, what is he going with for his best bets at UFC 288?
Brett, I'm bringing 6 best bets for UFC 288. I'm going with Henry Cejudo. I just don't see how Aljamain Sterling wins this fight. I think if he can't take the back of Cejudo, Cejudo can out-wrestle him, will outstrike him. And as far as this fight goes, I just think Henry came back for a reason, and this style makes sense. I'm taking Gracie at plus 140. I think he gets this fight to the floor, and he finishes Charles Jourdain by submission. Dober and Frevola, a.k.a. Gaethje Chandler 2.0, over 1.5 rounds. I think there is going to be a feeling out period. I know these guys want to slang and bang. However, this win is so important for both guys, especially for Frevola with his home court advantage. I think if a finish happens, it's going to be in round 3. Parker Porter, minus 170. I think the line should be higher. I've been watching Braxton. Look, the guy's got power. He's only 5'10" at heavyweight. Porter's a much bigger guy on the scale. He looked like he was in great shape. I think he gets it done. Over 1.5 rounds with Hawes and Alaskarov. And last but not least, I gotta think that Claudio Ribeiro wins this fight. He's better everywhere than Holmes. Holmes came into the weight over 4 pounds. He has not looked good in his last 2 fights in the UFC, and that's gonna round out our best bets for 288.
All right, we've ran through the entire card, main card, prelims. Now we got your best bets. How about what are we piecing together here for Parker's parlay this weekend?
Well, I'm glad I gave you 6 underdogs because this is the exact opposite. I'm going with 3 favorites here to get plus money. I'm going with the co-main event over 2.5 rounds. I think between Bilal and Gilbert, if this fight does end, I think it's going to be in the championship rounds 4 and 5. Chaos Williams is going to bring the chaos against a UFC newcomer, and he is an exceptional striker, a ton of power. I think he gets it done. And Brett, this is a really interesting one. I know why they did this, but only over a half a round at minus 360 because what they're telling me is that if Smith gets the knockout, it's going to be before that. I think Porter is smarter than that, will keep the distance or take the fight to the floor. So over 2.5, Chaos Williams, and over a half a round, and we're going to get plus 136 on your money for the parlay.
Over half a round, man. I don't think I've ever seen this on this show one time. I like that. Over 2.5, man. We don't need to wait too long to get that first leg out of the way. Okay, how about the long shot parlay? Give us something to make a whole lot of money here on Saturday.
Let's have a little bit of fun with the underdogs. I took 4 of them, and I put them into this parlay. Remember the name Bilal Muhammad. If he can push the pace, if he can keep the fight standing, use that cardio and really get that output of striking and shut down the jiu-jitsu of Burns, I think he can get it done at plus money. I'm taking Yan Xiaonan here. I think the physicality is going to go in her favor. I think if she can keep the fight standing, she is the more crisp, precise striker. Stay away from the power of Andrade. I think she can do it as well. Steamroller for Vola. You know what? The wrestling, I think, is going to come into play here. I cannot see Ray Longo allowing this fight to be a complete barn burner when Favola has a huge opportunity to get rid of someone in Dober and move up in the ranks. And last but not least, I'm going with the wrestler in Devin Clark here. If you put Kennedy on his back, you take away that power, I think Clark can ground it out. And Brett, I'll let you do the honors. That long shot, not one of our craziest ones, but it's still 4 underdogs for a nice little payday.
Yes, it is. About 36, 37 to 1 on the Parker long shot parlay, which we have not hit yet this year, but that just means we are due, baby. It was not an easy card to break down, Mr. Ian Parker. I mean, you got a guy coming off of a 1,000-day layoff in the main event, Henry Cejudo, and then you got 2 guys short notice fighting on another pay-per-view for the second time in 1 month. But that is what Parker is here to do. Break it all down for us from a gambling perspective. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope we put some money in your wallets this weekend, and we will see you again right here next week at UFC Best Bets to break down another card. Until then, we say goodbye and enjoy your weekend. See you later.